And read. Awesome. Hello, Tara. Tara Hullah is one of my dearest friends and a fabulous psychic coach, intuitive guide. Am I getting it right? Can you tell me exactly how you would describe yourself?
Yeah, I see myself as a just your everyday mystic. I'm someone who I coach people, I help guide people to find their higher self and to tap into their own intuition, because the source of all success and happiness lies within. It doesn't lie with outside of you. And so I guide people to discovering that to find happiness.
Amazing. So yeah, as I was telling you, I want to ask you, like, first of all, I'd love to hear a little bit about how you got to this place, how you got into coaching and psychic intuitive work. And is that one message, if you were on the rooftops shouting out with the biggest megaphone that could reach the entire planet, what would be your message? So first of all, how did you get here?
Oh boy, it's been a really long journey, especially when you consider my last job. I was an interior designer. So you think, okay, how does an interior designer turn into being this weirdo who channels and gives people advice all the time? And it actually starts like way before that. I've been psychic since I was a little kid, but I was very scared of it. And I didn't want anyone to know that I was different and that I was weird, which really didn't matter anyway, because I was pretty ostracized as a kid. I was that, there's always that one child who is by themselves in the schoolyard, who plays by themselves, who people don't seem to have any friends. We moved a lot, which didn't help. It used to break my mother's heart. She'd come pick me up from school and there I'd be all by myself. And so I learned from a really dark place, it's like, okay, if everybody in the world hates me, because when you're in that heavy, dark place, that's what you think. It's not necessarily true, but it's the lens that you see the world. So it's what you think. And then I have a choice. I can either believe them. I mean, teachers were even making fun of me. It was bad. Like, wow. It was so bad when teachers make fun of you, right? So it was a really dark time. And as I grew up, I learned my own story that people were mean and cruel and that no one could be trusted, which is just a lens to see the world. It's not the truth, obviously. And as you believe and feel those experiences, then you start to believe them more, because more experiences come to you.
Right, we perpetuate that very
thing. That's right. So you go in this cycle of trauma after trauma after trauma, trigger after trigger after trigger. And I had a choice. And the choice lay not in the situations themselves, but in my response to them. It's like I could decide for myself. If you're walking down the street and someone says to you, this, I love this Wayne Dyer quote. This was from one of his speeches, but he's like, if you're walking down the street and someone shouts out, hey, stupid, and you turn around and look, whose fault is it? It's you that's calling yourself stupid. If you kept walking and didn't think they were talking to you, then you would never have given yourself that label of being stupid, right?
Right.
And so when you look back at childhood, a lot of that stuff comes in name calling and bullying, and you go through that and you grow up. And
we agree. We pick on things. If we hear it enough, we agree to it. Like the 4 agreements say, you get to agree to whatever you want. And the more we treat ourselves well, the more we make new agreements with ourselves that we're amazing, or versus I'm stupid or a purple dinosaur or whatever, right? And that's one of the things you're always reminding me. Remember, the affirmations, the words, thoughts you think are important.
Right. And so when you grow up having all of these experiences of feeling not enough, of being not enough, and then I went into early adulthood, that's actually when I discovered manifestation and The Secret and things like that.
Uh-huh.
I had broken up with my boyfriend, and I had moved in with my aunt, and it became a year of nurturing. And I actually took floral design, so commercial floristry, making flower arrangements to work in a flower shop, because there's always been this creativity with me, as well as the intuition stuff. And so I started in that, and it was a really healing year for me. So I was living with my aunt, and I was going to school, and suddenly I started, because I started feeling healthier, I started making better choices. And as you make better choices, you start acting in it as if, and you start becoming the person that you want to become. And so I had this really magical year. I mean, it was the year that I met and fell in love with my husband, who I've now been with 23 years. That was the year that I really came to,
by the way.
And yeah, he is. He's really amazing, and our relationship is amazing, and we're super happy. And we, you know, we have this dream life. I couldn't be more blessed.
Yeah.
I really am so blessed. But regardless of that, when I did that, I decided in that stage, it's like, oh, I want to be an interior designer, because in that stage, I was learning about manifesting, but I didn't really clue into the magic of manifesting. And I started learning that your environment has an effect on who you are. And so it's like, well, I'd read an article in like House magazine, or maybe it was Home and Garden or Canadian House and Home, one of those magazines. And it was about this woman who was an interior designer, and she had gone to volunteer and help at women's shelters, because here are these women trying to escape scary, dangerous situations. And how could they possibly change their lives if they were moving into an environment that what was worse than what they left? Like, when you move it out of one environment into a place that, you know, is dingy and feels gross, and you bring more of that energy on you, and it makes it even harder to change. And so it inspired me to become an interior designer. And so I had this idea that I was going to get in. It never dawned on me that I wouldn't get in. And this is where I got to learn the opposite side of law of attraction. It's attracting, but the attracting that you don't want. So as it turned out, I was clueless about how hard it would be to get in. And I got in. Like, they were accepting 50 students that year, 300 applied. And I was one of the 50 that applied, or 50 that got in of the 300. But everyone was saying, oh, you're not going to get in. Do you have a backup plan? Or are you sure this is the right solution for you? You don't know how to draw. And those voices went into my head. It's like, oh, great. I don't know how to draw. I don't know how to draw. I shouldn't be here. I can't do this. And I mean, to be fair, one of my patterns was avoidance. So I would avoid, right? Like I would avoid doing the scary, hard stuff, which was looking at a blank piece of paper and being able to draw. As you know, now I'm an artist. I can draw. But at that time, I couldn't.
Fabulous.
And so I would avoid it. And where did I spend my time? I spent it with my husband, right? Who was my boyfriend at the time. So, I mean, that investment paid off. But at the same time, here I was going to school and doing something, and then I flopped out. The first time I did interior design, I went back and finished it and got my degree and everything else. But the first time I did it, I failed out, because I had this strong belief that I didn't deserve to be there, and I couldn't do it because I didn't know how to draw. And so I was an interior designer for a while. And
so your belief,
then
you lived out your belief.
Yeah.
Your actions backed up your belief at that time.
Exactly. Yes. And so I did end up going back. It's like I went back a few years later, because when you have a dream that's still living inside of you, you can't help but go back to that dream. So you're always going to cycle back to something. Even if you failed it, you're going to find yourself doing circles until you actually follow through with it and get what you need from it. And what I really think interior design was meant for me for was to further develop my abilities, because I was already clairaudient. I already had a strong guidance system, strong understanding of cause and effect of how the world works. So all these intuitive psychic things that
and I think that's interesting. I think it's interesting. You had that experience of watching that woman who was transforming the domestic violence shelters. I actually, Tara, I did not know that part of your story, FYI. And for whatever reason, that was an inspiration for you. That one thing kind of led you down a new pathway that was meant for you, right?
Yeah.
To get into interior design, which you're saying right now, you needed that piece of the puzzle to be here. This is really powerful. Yeah, I never knew that. And I just want to say real quickly, anybody watching on the live stream here on Facebook Live, in the group, feel free to ask questions. I've got my phone with the live stream going, so I'm seeing any questions and I will share them with Tara as they come up. So ask away at any point during our interview. All right, that's enough housekeeping. Carry on, go on with your story. So that led you to that training that you needed.
Yes, I did. And actually, for my major project at the end of my degree, you have to spend a year working on a project. My major project was actually transforming a school into a women's shelter. So I did a ton of studies about how people think and how the way they get to being where they are and post-traumatic stress and all this stuff and how your brain is changed by your environment. And so I got a really good understanding of that. I did learn how to draw. Actually, one of my very most satisfying moments was in this new school. I still didn't know how to draw. I got in again to a different interior design program.
You're killing me.
And I had this art teacher, and he said to me, he said, Tara, you're gonna have to learn it out of a book because I can't teach you. And so he just gave me an A, and I was mad at that. And so he always gave us an opportunity to grade ourselves. So I always gave myself a failing mark. So he ended up, even though I had straight A's and everything else, ended up pushing me through on my drawing class because he didn't really want to fail me. So next year I got a different teacher, and this teacher gave me a new perspective. We still had that piece of paper that I found so daunting and afraid of, but she made mistakes in front of us. And she's like, oh, no big deal. We'll just add a little here and a little color here. And anyways, my work ended up going out in the hall because I just, under that kind of instruction where it was safe to make mistakes and it was okay not to be perfect. And it was all right to make, in fact, you wanted to make mistakes because that's how you grew and changed. My artwork changed and my artwork flourished. And so I ended up excelling and becoming one of the best in the class. And if your work is really good, they stick it out in the hall. And so I'm walking down the hall this one day, and in front of me is the teacher who told me he couldn't teach me. There's my work, like it's on the wall in the hall, and I'm like about 10 feet away, and I see him stop in front of mine, lean in to see who did it, and jump back like 2 feet. It was the best experience ever because he could not believe, right? And that just goes to show you when your beliefs in yourself are powerful enough that they can get through, you don't need to assume the beliefs of other people, because a lot of the things that happen when you're an empath, I don't know if you've experienced this, Gina, but as an empath, you tend to live up to other people's expectations. Sometimes you don't need to unless you've shielded yourself. And up or down, and you've shielded yourself, or they have high expectations of you, or you've got a strong enough foundation in expectations of yourself. You will live up to theirs. Like you intuitively take it in. Yes. And I like, even out of design school, I had an aggressive manager one time. I was working, one of my first jobs was in an antique furniture store. And I was just this little 20-something out of design school. And here I am in this shop, and I was hired, it was a family business, and I was hired by this guy's sister while he was on vacation. He was kind of a controller. And every time he walked by me, I broke something. And it was usually something expensive. So I'd be in the middle of dusting something and it would just shatter in my hand. Or I'd bump a shelf and it would shatter. Like you really do feel the intensity of the energy around you. Yes. And anyone can do this. If you walk into a room where there's a party and everyone's having a great time, it feels completely different than if you walk into a room and people have been given horrible news. Like we all have this ability to sense and feel, and it's part of our communication process. So so then after that, I was an interior designer.
Can I ask real quick here? We have a viewer, Monica, who is asking First of all, one viewer is also saying, how do you spell her name? I need to find her on the socials. And when you find her in social media, you'll see some of her art and you'll be like, wait, that guy said what? She's so good, you guys. So Monica is asking, I'm an overwhelmed empath and not sure if I'm going to get my energy back. What to do? Is this something you can feel comfortable answering right now on the spot?
Absolutely. Okay. When I was first doing readings, I would get drained after the readings because you have a connection with people and you have a connection with the outside world too. So think of it like little spider webs. Every single person you talk to and communicate with, it could even be the bank teller or the clerk at the grocery store. Right. You've now got a thread of connection. And so absolutely, if you're an empath and you're really sensitive to these things, you can be drained by them. So symbolically and physically, there are a couple of things you can do. One is you can wash your hands and pretend that you're just, when you get home after going on an outing somewhere, and you're washing the energy off of you. I like to use the new moon and full moon, but we'll talk about that at the end, to do a real full deep balancing. And the other thing you can do is ground yourself. So before you leave the house in the morning, imagine your center, imagine your core, and you only need to think about it for a few minutes. You want to think about three things. First, you want to think about a memory that makes you feel really, really good, because in that memory, you can ground yourself into that feeling. You want to see the earth being your support. And as you're standing on the ground, you want to take a deep breath in so that you're getting nourishment from above, and a deep breath out so you're pushing anything that you don't want out. And you feel this deep connection with the earth. So feel like roots growing out of your feet down to the center of the earth. And then the last thing you want to do is create this energy shield around yourself so that you can always be surrounded by love no matter where you go. And you can, some people like to make it a mirror so that anything that's negative just bounces right off of the mirror. Some people just need it as like, maybe it's like a filter system like you would have with your water filter, and so that only the good stuff filters through. It's all dependent on your own unique intuition. Trust yourself to know what that answer is. I also like grounding crystals. So things like amethysts are great for protection. Jasper is great for grounding. Bloodstone is great for grounding. Obsidian is great if you're going through change and you're wanting to disrupt things and have a change in your life. Another sign of fatigue is when you have when you're tired and you're feeling a lot of fatigue. Sometimes it's because you're not feeling inspired by your world and you're not feeling inspired in your environment. So you wake up in the morning and think, oh, great, another day. I'm going to do the same thing I did yesterday. And so if that is your space, then purposely find ways to change it up. Maybe you don't do the same routine. Maybe if you have to leave the house somewhere, you don't take the normal route, you take a different route. Or find ways to interrupt your normal day to create a bit of interest and excitement.
Tara, all of that is so perfect. And I think a lot of our viewers are going to really find that very helpful. And I want to add, Monica is saying, I've been crying for 2 days. Can you speak to that when somebody is releasing energy and crying?
That's right. Crying is a form of release. And so we always have a choice at that point. Crying is a good thing. Let it out. Let yourself cry. Cry as much as you need to. Toxic energy. And then when it's energy that's coming out of you. And then when you're done crying, take a deep breath and give yourself a hug and say, I love you anyways. And every day gets better and better from here. And as you start thinking that, you start to grow new neural pathways in your mind. And eventually the new neural pathways, you really are going to notice things getting better and better, because once you give the brain a task, it will search out answers for that task. Another way to interrupt, allow yourself to cry. And then when you're spent, give yourself a nice shower or a bath, because those are forms of renewal. And if you follow the path to where you're crying, I'm so sorry that you're hurting so much right now. when you are following the path to getting to tears, there were thought processes that happened to get you to where you are. So you would have been triggered by some sort of event, and then chances are you're recalling that event over and over and over again. Or maybe there's a fear that you have that's in the future. And so chances are you're reliving that fear over and over and over again. And each time you're creating trauma in your body. So releasing it is through tears is by all means one of the most beautiful things you can do for yourself. I'm not sure what happened. Gina, are you there? We'll just see what happens here. Okay, I think the irony is that happened at 222. So there's a message in that alone. And I'm not sure if I'm on live on Facebook, and I'm going to end this and see if we can get Gina back on. But it's been a pleasure speaking with all of you so far. All right, I think she's coming back here in just a minute. She's outside, so something must have happened outside. So we got distracted by all this. It is outside, so something must have happened outside.
Okay. All right.
So we got distracted by all this. It is
Okay, yeah.
outside, so something must have happened outside.
Okay. All right.
So okay, you're back. Got distracted by all this.
Okay, yes. So let me close.
All right, so okay, you're back. Got distracted by all this.
Oh, we are amazing. Okay. Yay. Okay, is
Yay,
it
we're
still
back.
coming through? Yay, I'm so glad you didn't cut it off, go off. I'm like, no, stay on, Tara. I'm coming back. I moved into my house. And not sure what happened. It just, my whole internet shut down. But we're back now. And I'm so, yes, it was at 2:22 Calgary time. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to just set up my phone here. I think we're all back. We're back on Facebook Live. We're back on Zoom. Look at that beautiful painting of my mother's. Okay. Yay. So as we're talking about the tears, the cleansing energy of the tears, we just move right along. Tech issues happen at 2:22.
Yeah. So I would take that as a sign. I look for signs everywhere, and it happened at 2:22. I take that as a sign. And twos are, of course, being the number of companionship, and number of decision, a number of twos are great. Twos are really great. And numbers of
companionship. They are, yes. Yeah, relationship.
Balance. Yep, support. And when you add all those numbers, it makes a 6, which is a number of victory. So there's that too. And here's the thing. I want to talk a little bit about something different here because of the number situation that popped up. But it's not that the numbers themselves have meanings. It's the meanings that you give it. So in my case, like, you create the rules, and then your spirit guides and the universe they know what your rules you have, and so they send the communication to you. So I tend to like going and looking at numbers on a website called Joanne Scribe's Angel Numbers, and so you can look up all these different numbers on there. And so my spirit guides know I do that, and then they'll send me specific messages. And oftentimes when you start becoming awakened, or if you call it that, I don't know that I call it, a lot of people call it awakening, but you get into that space where you see differently and you see more. Then you start noticing things like random numbers showing up, like 1111. Look at the clock and it's 11:11, or it's 1:11, or you start seeing these things on repeat, and you're like, wait a minute, that's weird. Why is it every time I look at the clock, it's 1111? Why is my grocery bill $11.11? Like, you start having these experiences, and it's I think it's fun. And then you can look deeper into it. I call those synchronicities. Yeah, exactly.
I call those synchronicities, and they come in the form of numbers, angel numbers, but they also come in the form of, like, the way it happens for me all the time, almost daily, is if I'm listening to something on the radio, or, you know, listening to a Hay House radio or YouTube or something, and then I am also writing at the same time, and words will happen at the same exact time. Or so I'm in the room with somebody and they're talking and they say something at the same time I'm typing the same exact word. That is like the way that the universe or spirit speaks to me, through synchronicities. And when that's happening, I pay attention. And I used to keep a log. I used to keep a log of what word was said, who was saying it, and what the circumstances were in my life. You know, maybe I was at work or I was doing this or that. And just to kind of go, is there a pattern here, or what is it? And like recently, I started to work with somebody new, and we were talking, and I kept having these synchronicities whenever this woman would talk. And I'm like, that is so fascinating. And so I would just pay closer attention to, what is she saying right now? I think I need to pay attention. So angel numbers, synchronicities, there's so many ways that the universe talks to us. Right. And when we get quiet and we allow ourselves to be open to it, then it's so easy to be led.
It can happen at any time too. It can absolutely happen at any time. Like, I was standing in line at the grocery store, and this was when I was looking for contract work for doing drafting and interior design. And a guy in front of me leaned in and grabbed Canadian House and Home. And I had this voice in my head say, Tara, you need to talk to this guy. Now, how scary is that, to talk to a random stranger in the grocery store, right? So I leaned over what he was looking at, and I'm like, so is that your style? Do you like that taste? And we got into a conversation, and as it turned out, he was looking for someone to do his drafting. He himself was an interior designer in Vancouver, and I got to do some really fun jobs under him. I got to there's a Lamborghini dealership in Vancouver that I got to do some of the design for, and some of these really fancy high-end homes in Vancouver. And so it was it gave me a touch of glamour. And you know, you always want to, how does the other half live? What is that glamour like, right? And so I got to experience a different side of design than what I was used to, and what I had been doing on the island. Is he was a Vancouver designer who happened to live on the island, and he was semi-retired, so he just wanted someone to, he didn't do computer stuff. Everything he did was in pencil by hand. And so he would have me, these people were expecting renderings and things like that on the computer. So I worked with him until I had my daughter, which was yet another miracle. I tell you, miracles happen all the time, right? Like, and when we think things are at their darkest and at their heaviest, there's always a way out. There's always an answer. And there's always a solution that's just waiting for you to see things differently, and a perception. When I was in my mid-30s, I was doing interior design, but it was part-time. And I was also working at a technical communications job that I didn't like. And it wasn't that I didn't like the job. I liked the people that I worked with. I liked my employers. They were a wonderful company. I didn't so like being yelled at on the phone, and I didn't like how rigid the schedule was. When you're in a call center and you're doing phone support, then like that's a really draining energy for an empath. And then of course, having a really rigid schedule when you're someone who's creative and doesn't handle rigid schedules really well, it was hard. Like calls are expected to be at this length of time. You're expected to leave at this length at this time, have lunch and break at this time. And my thought is, yeah, but I'm not going to hang up on a tough call. And if I'm in the middle of a call with someone and take my break because it's my break, or I want to help them with their problem, right? So it was very draining. And through that experience, I ended up discovering that I had a precancerous situation. And I was told that I would never be able to have kids. And so I was literally told, you won't be able to have kids. And the doctors put me on this medication and stuff. And I gained 30 pounds in 1 month from taking it. Like, it was insane. And it made me really, really sick and really, really like, it was just awful. And my doctor, it wasn't my doctor that put me on it. My doctor sent me to a specialist because my numbers were so weird. She's like, you need to talk to someone who deals with this. So this was the specialist that had given me this medication and things like that. And my own intuition said, see an acupuncturist. But I blame it on a lot of the thoughts and feelings that I was having. And my form of relief when I went to work at this place that I didn't like was they had this massive painting on the wall. And I would stare at this painting, and it became a meditation going into this painting. And it felt like I was walking into a jungle, and I would go to this little hut, and I would sit on the floor of this little hut talking to one of my spirit guides. And then I would have the energy to continue my day. But while I was going through all this experience, my inner guides told me to do acupuncture. And so I did. I went and did acupuncture, and acupuncture got rid of the problem. The medications didn't do anything. And so I went off them because they were making me really sick. And then I went to the acupuncture, and I went to the specialist, and he yelled at me. He's like, how did you not come back to me when this wasn't working? And when you, like, he was really upset, and he did not believe that the acupuncture had fixed the problem. But it was scheduled for doing a surgery to go inside and see if it had cleared up. And sure enough, everything was cleared up. I had no more precancerous cells or anything. It was completely cleared up, and it was acupuncture. I quit that job. I went into doing interior design full time. My life again got happy. Do you notice the pattern here? There's happy parts, sad parts, happy parts, sad parts. It goes up and down, and that's all of our lives are like that, right? We're going to go through periods that are hard, that teach us something about ourselves. And when we're ignoring ourselves, we make them harder. And when we start listening to our intuition, we end up bouncing back up to the top again and feeling good again. It's knowing those are coming and still maintaining an internal sense of self and an equilibrium is what's really going to help you through it.
Tara, I have a question here. When you say, you know, the ups and downs and the sads and highs and lows, what is your perspective? You know, I have a very, very strong perspective. The highs can get as high as possible. What is your perspective on the lows?
Well, things get harder as long as you're not tuned in listening to the message. So the message becomes louder and louder. It's like, think if you have kids your kids are young and they're like 3 years old and mommy, look at me, and you're ignoring them. Yes. And they get louder. Mommy, look at me, and you're ignoring them, and they get louder. Mommy, right? And so our situations seem to be like that too. And so if we are really tuned in, we don't necessarily have to go through those incredibly deep lows. When we're going through those deep lows, the best thing we can do is find the lesson, find out how it serves us instead of how it's hurting us. Because the more we see that it's hurting us, the more it's going to continue hurting us. The more that we look for the lesson and see the lesson, then we can start lifting up ourselves above the lesson. Because one thing humans have that animals don't have is we have this ability to be self-aware, and we can change our own programming within our own minds.
Thank you so much for sharing that perspective, because I really want people to really get home. A couple things themes that you've talked about, and I really want to drive it home, is that we have the power. We have the power, we have the power, we have the power to shift our ideas. And it's the way we think about things. Oh, this isn't happening to me. This is happening for me, for my growth. Also, I don't want people to gloss over the power of tuning into the synchronicities and the signs, and how literally it can take your life on a whole new trajectory, like a whole new direction. You had this idea to talk to that person in the grocery store, which, based on what you just said, how scary is that to talk to a stranger? That is not your normal. For me, that's like not that out of the ordinary. But for some people, that's like, why am I talking to this stranger? For you, it was a moment in time, just like watching that interview with the interior designer of the women's shelters. Just like all these little things, it's so important that we listen to our inner guidance and follow these breadcrumbs. And one of the things that is so, I think you and I share this mission, and is to really help people magnify their connection with the unseen. And it's not trivial. So many people, especially in the patriarchal paradigm, the very out of balance masculine energy that our world right now is experiencing, they minimize it. They make fun of spiritual practice. They spiritual coaches, right? How hard has it been for you and I to back our own selves, because other people aren't going to back this? Like, you know what I'm saying? So all these little nuggets you're sharing with us are really, really important. Pay attention to the angel numbers. Let that have meaning for you when your odometer reads 1,111 miles. Let it make a meaning for you that, oh, it's time to tune in. Even if it's just a reminder, tune in. So I just really wanted to make sure we drive that message home. And I think you were going to share what is the one thing, if I could shout it from the rooftops with my megaphone that reaches the planet, what is that message?
Well, we all have God on speed dial, like source, spirit, universe, whatever you choose to believe, the energy that flows through everything and creates everything, that intelligent form. We have a connection, a direct connection to it. And it doesn't matter who you are, you have that connection. And so it's all about slowing down, tuning in, and starting to really trust yourself instead of looking to the outside world. And the other thing is, we all want the same things. We all want to be here in the fullest expression of who we are. We all want to serve the world in our own unique ways, with our own unique gifts, and to do it really well and joyfully. Like, that's literally what everyone's looking for. And you're not going to find that outside of yourselves, right? Like, it's not going to come when you get the money. It's not going to come when you get the relationship. It's not going to come when you get the perfect health. I mean, all those things are wonderful in themselves, and absolutely living an abundant life, you have access to those, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with those,
right?
But
yeah.
When
you were living your best life, and in your highest, you were happy, you were healthy, you were going to school, you were learning about flower design, which is actually your most aligned, one of the themes in your life. That's when you met your husband.
Yeah.
Right? And oh, so amazing. And I know you were in the middle of telling us the story of your miracle daughter, Claire, you guys. Oh my God. Claire is literally just an angel from heaven in the form of a 4-year-old, 5-year-old now. But what you just said, spirit on speed dial. One of the things I want our audience to understand, because you guys, I've worked with Tara for 3 or 4 years now, and we've become very close friends. But one of the things she always does is, yes, she is psychic. She gets divine downloads. She gets vision. She knows. She can see what's going on. But she does not condition her clients to rely on her. She feeds them what they need. She guides them to their own heart. Am I saying this accurately? I'm sort of putting words in your mouth, but I know that that's what you do. And I know that's what your bottom line here is, right? It's not about, oh, call me Tara and I'll tell you what's your future. She can say, take it from here, because I think this is really valuable information. You do not want people dependent on you or somebody else for what's going on in my future. You empower your client.
And there's always free will, and nothing is ever written in stone. There's always multiple pathways to the future. There's multiple. Yeah. You'll hear Abraham Hicks, if any of you follow Abraham, and talks about your vortex having everything that you've ever wanted there. Yes, it's all there. It's 99% created. However, the option to go there is still yours. So if you're someone who had the intuitive nudge to start losing weight, I'm using weight because that's an area that I struggle. I kid you not. We all have our struggles. That's mine.
It's a universal one.
Let's use this.
I mean, for real. Yeah, let's do that. Fairly universal.
So yeah, it's a pretty universal one. So, okay. We look at this and we say, okay, I want to lose weight. And then you're focused on it and you're doing everything inside that feels right. Your thoughts are clean. Your eating is clean. You're drinking lots of water. You're doing exercise that you have fun with, not that you find a chore. You're just living it up, and life is really great. And you see that you're starting to lose weight and you're feeling better and better all the time. And then you go to a psychic and you ask them, because it's on your mind, it's been what you've been working on, your focus is like, am I going to have the dream body that I've always wanted? And the psychic's going to go, oh, these cards fell out. I see this is, yes, it looks like you're on track to having this fantastic figure. And then you go, oh, great. And so you go home and you're like, you know what? I've been working really hard. I think I'm going to go and have a burger. And then you follow that up with a chocolate shake. And then the next day you eat junk food. And then you get a depressing phone call. So you're curled up in bed and you don't feel like exercising. And then you've stopped every single good habit that would have brought you to where you wanted to go. And do you think if you go in for a reading 3 months after doing that, you're going to get the same response? Well, no, because you've now switched trajectory. You're now on a different path. You're not on a path to health anymore because you've taken yourself off that path.
Right. So what you're saying is that the psychic or whoever somebody might go see is reading their current energy typically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you. And it's interesting because this is a really good example of what happens for a lot of people when you take yourself out of your comfort zone, right? And you say, you know, for a lot of my clients, it's about how do I develop a better relationship? How do I attract a better relationship? I have a track record of really toxic, abusive, disempowering relationships. What do? I want to stop. I want to change the people I attract. I want to fix my picker, whatever. And we will start working together and my clients will start making strides. They're moving out of their comfort zone. They're actually changing their boundaries. They're communicating their boundaries. They're honoring their own boundaries. And what happens, those people will say no. The people who they have been compliant with will say that's not okay, or their inner child, their little self who has not caught up with their new level is saying, no, it's not safe. You're going to be left alone. You're going to be hated. You're going to be treated poorly. It's not safe to have these boundaries. That's when, kind of like losing weight, we start to do different things. And we start to go, oh, it's easier to just eat a comfort shake. I need a chocolate shake to feel better, or whatever. And it's a constant turning up of the dial incrementally. And which is where, like, why somebody would work with somebody like you, Tara, or me, to have that scaffolding, that bridge. It's like, you're not sending your daughter to kindergarten to say, all right, look, go watch some videos and learn how to read. She's nurtured by a teacher. And then reinforced at home. You got the environment that you talked about. Your environment is safe and supportive of her to live and read and experience her fullest expression and to be fully who she is. And so the growth experience, the evolution experience is always a choice. It's a choice, and it starts here in our minds, what we teach ourselves, what we repeat over and over and over again, and how we nourish ourselves. So Tara, we have about 15 more minutes. Yeah, I want to hear more.
I wanted to add to that point that you were making. So
please,
as
yes.
a coach, as a coach, one of the things that we do for our clients that I see is, and you do this really well, is you actually see the other person's potential. And these are words that you've used, not me. I'm going to use your words here. You use the words, I hold space for people to be their best self. And so you actually will already see them as their best self. And I like to think of, I mean, I don't hold any denomination. I've read the Bible. I believe in God. I believe in all sorts of religions, but in the Christian faith and in the Bible, they have this part where Jesus has healed these people. And I like to see it as that's what's happening is he sees them completely healed and he says, you're healed. And he sees them at a higher vibration than what they see themselves. And so just like when you're an empath and you're living up to all of these ideas from people that are around you, you live up to these expectations. We've been doing it since we were a kid. And now we're trying to raise above them. It really helps to have someone who sees you at that higher expectation that you see yourself as, because it just strengthens your own decision making and your own resolve in who you are.
Yeah, exactly. And that is the importance of surrounding yourself with people who hold that vision. And that's one of the things that I do when I first start working with somebody, when I'm in anybody's energy, when they're in my groups, I say, what is your vision? What's your vision? What's your vision? What's your vision? And a lot of people, that's really hard for them to go there. So I do some exercises to help loosen that, strengthen those muscles and build those muscles. But when somebody shares with me this vision of themselves and they're in the middle of a Parisian plaza as a travel writer and they're surrounded by adoring suitors everywhere and they're wearing fabulous clothes. This came through from one of my clients recently, and I don't even think she realizes that that's in her. But it came through in her writing, and she's like traveling the world and telling people about it and writing and getting paid to do this. And it's like, well, now that's all I'm available for. It's this or something better for her. So every time I connect with her, I see her, I talk to her, she's in a group of mine, I see her name pop up. That's who she is. And so every time she's going to be in my energy, she's going to rise up to that version of herself and agree with that. And then that's backing herself with her own belief. And I didn't understand about the power of this until I watched my son, who has Asperger's, as you know, and who's highly empathic. I have a whole thing about why people who are autistic or on the spectrum, why they shut down and they seem so different from how they really are. They're so porous in their energy and they pick up that they will rise up or down to everybody's expectations. And I watched it happen like as though it was a dial on my son. When he would be around certain people, he would either just be this amazing, wonderful, like talented, expressive, magnetic person, or a complete terror. Just based on other people's expectations, not by what they said, but what their projection, they're looking at the world through their lens and expecting. This is such powerful work. Tara, thank you for bringing that up. So I think I may have interrupted you, which I have a tendency to do once in a while when I want to jump on something.
I do that too.
What you were saying is that's what a coach will do. Provide that while you are developing your belief system. And, Tara and I, as I've mentioned many times, we will reach out to each other out of the blue if we haven't even talked to in a couple of weeks, or be like, oh my God, you're not going to believe this thing that happened. And we always are like, what's going on here? And she's like, well, I don't know what's going on with you, but you're still doing this. In her vision, I'm doing this. Even though I'm experiencing this, I have to go through this in order to develop whatever muscles I need to remind myself to affirm, to continue to affirm, lock in that belief system. But for her, she's not going through my daily whatevers and experiencing the wobble, she's here. And I think that that's such a wonderful gift that we get to provide for our clients and our audience and anybody who's in our energy, anybody who's on the other side of that spider web, which I have to share with you a synchronicity, because you brought up the spider web in the grocery store, the post office, all of that stuff. Last night, I'm sitting next to my son. He's here with us right now. And I'm sitting there next to my son and I'm doing my work, because he's like, I'm connecting with my clients on Messenger, and he's looking at like how somebody comes in, like into my world, into my group, gets a part of my life. And then now we are developing relationships. He's watching that and he says, Mom, how many spider webs do you think you have out there with different people? Isn't that crazy? He brought up the same thing that you said. And he's like, every connection, how many do you think you have? Of course, he stumped me because I had no answer. I'm like, I don't know, millions, thousands, I don't know, 150 at a time. I have no, and then he had some statistic to say, well, research indicates that the human brain can accommodate whatever, 150 connections at a time or something. But I just found that to be a perfect synchronicity. So I would like to ask you in our closing minutes, Tara, what is it? Have you shouted? Yes, the speed dial. Spirit is on speed dial. If you could give the viewers like 3 things that they can take away and actually start applying to their lives in this minute, as soon as we finish this broadcast, that will help them strengthen and affirm their beliefs and step into their next level. What are 3 takeaways? And then, of course, how can they find you? Do you have something that they take away, a gift that they can use also and find you and follow you and look at your artwork and maybe call you for a reading, whatever? So I've asked you 3 questions. Do you remember them? I'm so excited.
Okay. Okay. So let me think for a minute and just reflect here.
Please do.
3 takeaways. The biggest being that you are already everything that you need to be. Everything that you have in this moment and are is completely okay. And it's completely okay that you want to keep going. It doesn't matter what position you are, you will want to keep going. So I would grab a journal, or if you feel creative and inclined, grab a pen and a piece of paper. And if you're grabbing a journal, ask yourself these questions. What am I feeling right now? And describe it. And then if it's a negative feeling, you can go, okay, that's really interesting. Where did this come from? Was this always mine, or did this belong to somebody else? Because a lot of our thoughts and feelings that we're repeating over and over and over again came through our childhood and through how we grew up. Like, we've pretty well established our brain by the age of 7, at least that part of things, the emotions and things like that, and how we see the world. And so start looking at how you're responding to what is happening with you, and ask yourself if you can be free from how you respond. That can you choose to believe differently? Can you see it differently in someone else? If you're just looking to feel better in the moment, if you're not feeling very happy, focus on the present, because usually the present moment, there are no triggers. Most present moments are pretty boring. If you're sitting here watching it live, you're sitting here watching it live. There's no earthquake going on, no wind throwing your computer around the room, no tornado, anything like that. So you can look in this moment, and it doesn't matter whether you're a millionaire, whether you're married, whether you're single. In this moment, you're the same as everybody else. That's not going to be at the forefront, is the label of who you are. It's the moment. It's, what does the floor feel like underneath my feet? What am I smelling? What do I hear? What is happening that is magical in this moment? And as you start focusing on the present moment, you're going to interrupt those thoughts and feelings that make you feel worse. And so that's where I would start. And if you are needing to go through the feelings instead, because the other thing that people can do is, oh, I shouldn't be feeling negative. I'm going to push it away. I'm going to push it away. If you just push it away, it's like I was saying about that 3-year-old. They're just going to come back louder and louder. So sometimes you can say, okay, for the next 10 minutes, I'm willing to completely feel this emotion. I'm willing to go through it. And then I'm going to ask myself, what is this telling me? What am I learning from this? And then you're now making that moment, that icky, awful moment, constructive. You're now finding a way to make it lift you up. Because when your source is calling you, they're not calling you from happy. They're calling you from where you are. So they're literally the next step of feeling better. So if you're feeling depressed, anger might be your next step. Anger feels better than depression. This isn't right. How dare they? And what can happen is you can either go back into that cycle of depression, or you can move up to the next step, which might be frustration. Why do I always have to pick up their things off the floor, or whatever it is, right? I mean, other people might prefer you depressed because you're not taking action and throwing things around and slamming cupboard doors, which is so satisfying. Cleaning when you're mad, I tell you, that's like the best thing in the world. You're getting all that energy out and your house ends up clean in the end. But, and then from anger, it's like, okay, where can I move up from here? Where am I being called? Well, frustration. Okay, well, I'm frustrated. Where am I being called? Well, now my frustration's spent. Maybe I'm more hopeful. Now that I'm feeling more hopeful, I'm starting to get into that positive range. But the most damaging thing people can do, I think, when someone's feeling really upset is say, just happy up. Like that's not going to do anything, because then you feel worse because you're not happy. And now you have to justify why you're not happy, which is going to make you even more unhappy because you're justified. So I think that would be the takeaway, is really start looking at yourself from a detached perspective. See if you can see yourself from a different lens. Maybe you're looking at yourself as if you're your best friend. Maybe you're looking at yourself as the person that's having a problem as a small child. And Louise Hay work is my favorite. I would go back to that. So Heal Your Life by Louise Hay is probably one of my favorite books. I've been reading that book for 20 years and I still go back to it. And so if anyone is struggling with being enough, feeling enough, looking to the external world for things that really need to be dealt with internally, go to Louise Hay. She won't steer you wrong. Look at Hay House. But Heal Your Life by Louise Hay is the best book for learning how to work through your emotions to get to the other side of happiness.
Amazing. And I was typing all this as you were saying this. I'm typing these and I will put them in the notes so people can remember. All right. And were you saying more?
Okay. So in terms, I'm just answering the rest of your questions. And hopefully we've got a couple minutes left. I can do it really fast. So in order to find me, my Facebook page is Tara Hullah, Intuition Through Love. And I have a community. I think it's called the Intuitive Community. I never remember the name of my community, but if you go to my page, you can click on the group and then I can add you. And for anyone who is interested in using the moon as a balancing tool, because I like to use, when we have a new moon, that's a time of period of growth, like you're planting seeds in the ground, and then you're focusing on your building, the building of your dreams. And then when you hit the full moon, you've reached the maximum potential of that moon, and it starts to wane from there. So as the moon is waning, I like to use that period to go through my shadow work and get rid of my limiting beliefs. And by doing this on a monthly basis with a monthly cycle, then it keeps you pretty balanced. You're able to balance your life quite easily. So if anyone would like a copy of that, just send me a message and I will be happy to share it with you.
Awesome. Do you have a link for that we can put into the group and people can connect it, or do you rather that they just message you?
I can create one. I don't actually have a link created, but I can. It's
either way,
just something that I have.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's amazing. And then where can people find you if they want? I need to work with this woman. I need to connect. I need to follow her or connect with her in a deeper way. Where's the best way for people to find you?
Facebook's the best. So on my webpage, or sorry, on my Facebook page, Tara Hullah, Intuition Through Love.
Tara Hullah, what? Intuition? What was it again? What was the
Through
last
love.
word? Through love. Okay. And then you have a Facebook group. Do you have a free group for people?
Yeah, it's a free group. And
Oh, is that the
you
group that
can
you mentioned,
click on
or is that
it
your
right
page?
directly from my page. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Yay. So thank you very much, Tara. This has been absolutely amazing, as is every connection that we have. You are doing so much to change the course of history for the world and helping people remember spirit is on speed dial, and we have everything we need right here within us right now. I'm so thankful for your time.
Absolutely.
And look for people to come find you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
It's been fun. Thanks a lot, Gina, and we'll talk later. Bye.
I'm sure we will. Bye.